Hi there, y'all, and welcome to Millennial Travels, a series on different travel destinations. On this episode, I'm visiting Chicago, the home of the deep dish pizza, the Bulls, the Bears, or the Cubs, depending upon what your favorite sport is, or as other people call it, the Windy City. Let's get right into it. So with this trip, it was going to be something like San Juan, in that I would only have a weekend to explore the city. To make the most out of this trip, I got a Go City Pass to do some of the big things like the Planetarium, 360 Chicago, a riverboat cruise, and much more stuff for free. More on the Go City Pass at this timestamp. With the pass and plane ticket in hand, I flew to the Windy City and arrived at the PM hours. Then I kind of basically hauled butt to the Airbnb in Chinatown, where I got some good food before tucking in for the night. After eating a nice hearty breakfast of cheddar stuffed hot dogs, I set off for the east side of Chicago to see Lake Michigan and to walk along the lake's edge to see one of the Great Lakes and to hit up the sites that were covered on my Go City Pass along the way. The first view along this path was Burnham Harbor, which is Chicago's largest harbor and is nestled right in the museum campus, surrounded by a ton of popular locations. The first place I checked out was Planetarium. Now, when you get your ticket, you get a free showing to one of the movies in the domed theater. I opted for the moon showing since it dealt more heavily with the space theme that the museum was going for. The theater itself was within the massive dome of the planetarium with a wraparound screen and speakers to complement this experience about a little round ball circling our world. The rest of the museum covers the history of exploration from the days of boats sailing the seas to rockets to the stars. The bits that I love the most were the exhibits that go over our understanding and what we think is happening to our universe as time marches on. Once getting my fill on the space exploration, I headed outside to walk along the side of the planetarium that faced Lake Michigan. I relaxed near 12th Street Beach for a bit, then walked along the lake's edge, letting the waves flow over my feet while admiring all the boats that were on the lake. With all that water around, I decided to go to the Shed Aquarium to check out all the wonderful animals they have. At the time of my visit, it was crowded and it was hard to see some of the animals up close. Excluding some of the busier areas of the aquarium, it had a great variety of wildlife to see. The highlights for me was the stingray petting pool and the dolphins doing tricks in the big pool area. I just wish I was there earlier than 2 p.m. as you can feed the stingrays if you buy a cup of fish. So if you do go to the aquarium and you want to feed some stingrays, get there before 2 p.m. You might be able to feed a little stingray. After the aquarium, I headed over to the Field Museum of Natural History to brush up on, well, some of my history and to see the T-Rex skeleton on display. Now, one of the first things I would suggest is going here early, as the place is huge with lots of displays that can take a while if you're going to be going about reading the exhibits, especially those displays. Unfortunately, I got here about an hour before closing, so I basically had to speed run the museum. Out of the exhibits that I got to view, the highlights were the earliest formations of monarchs in Europe, the Native American wing, and the dinosaurs, especially Sue, the T-Rex. With the museum closing, I went around the corner to pick up a Chicago-style dog with no ketchup to add more to my Chicago experience. Honestly, I could do without the giant pickle, but otherwise, it was good to have while I pushed on closer to the downtown area. Along the way, I stopped by the Buckingham Memorial Fountain and the Yacht Club, where I got a mini refreshment while checking out all the fancy-looking sailboats that were docked in the area. Eventually, I made it to the Chicago River, where I got an amazing view of the river with some prime real estate while some boats were cruising on by. With most of the big views out of the way, I winded down a bit and wanted to take a break and hit some pins. So I went to 10 Pin Bowling Lounge to play a few games and enjoy some slices of pizza. After I took some shots of the downtown area at night, I then decided that after walking so many miles that day, I figured it would be a good idea to head back to my room to get some rest. So with the Go Wild Pass, one of the stipulations was that I had to book 24 hours ahead of my flight time. So I woke up around 3 a.m. to book my ticket, only to find out that Sunday was all sold out. So the only flight that I could get back home on that weekend was a Saturday around 7 p.m. With that, I booked my ticket with a tear in my eye and I went back to sleep. In the morning, I had a tight timeline on the stuff that I could do before I had to fly out. So I quickly got to Navy Pier Marina to hop on a tour boat to get a different perspective on the Chicago River. Now with the tour boat, it had a large open deck that gave folks a nice unobstructed view of the buildings while cruising down the river. It also had drinks for those who worked up a thirst while looking at the buildings. Luckily this day wasn't hot, so there wasn't really a chance to be baked alive in the sun. My favorite part was just looking around at the bridges, buildings, and the overall scenery while getting a history lesson from the tour guide. At a certain point though, I just sat back and relaxed with all those cool views just cruising on by. After when the tour was done, I walked over to Millennium Park to get a shot of the Cloud Gate, or as some folks call it, the Beam. Unfortunately, as of right now, the park is still closed till 2024. But there was one last thing I had to do before I left Chicago, and that was to have a deep dish pizza in Chicago. The pizza itself was fantastic and reminded me of when I made my own crustless pizza with how much ingredients were inside. On that note about the deep dish pizza, if you want to get that style of pizza, you might want to call ahead so they can prep it before you get there. They told me it would take about 40 minutes for it to be finished. So for those on a time crunch, this may not be the best option if you need a quick bite. With my belly full, I headed back to my room to pack my things to head to the airport to hop on my ride back home. Overall, I had fun despite my shorter than expected trip to the Windy City. I did miss some things, but I also saw a lot while I was there. The river cruise was number one on my list of things to do, with the Skydeck or 360 being second. I'll definitely visit Chicago again in the future to see things that I missed and to grab me another deep dish pizza. Now the Go City Pass is basically a ticket to see multiple places under one pass. The Go City Pass offers many options to fit someone's needs based on what all they're wanting to see. Being as it was my first time in Chicago and using the pass, I wanted to experience as many cool things as possible. For the trip, I got the all-inclusive 2-day pass, which covered the big stuff that I wanted to see while I was there. So the way that it worked, at least for me, was that I downloaded their app, logged in, and had a QR code that folks at these locations can scan to verify that I had the pass. It was quick and painless, so I had no complaints in using the pass. I also believe there's a print-off option for those who don't want the hassle of having to basically pull up an app, especially if you have like data issues. Now the cool thing with the pass was that I could use it multiple times, so it wasn't a one and done deal. For instance, if I wanted to do the river cruise on each day I had the pass, I could have done it. I could have done it Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, or whatever how many days I had the pass. It's just I can't do it multiple times on the same day. I believe that had to do with the sort of pass I got though. Just be sure to read the fine details, as some attractions tell folks to reserve a slot ahead and others say, oh, this is only one day, but just check the details and you should be good. But with that said, this was my short but fun experience in the Windy City. Y'all stay safe and have a good one.